What if you found a book that wasn't meant for human eyes? A book so cursed, so alive, that its words could unravel your mind, make shadows dance in the dead of night, and pull you into a darkness you can't escape? Welcome to the bone-chilling tale of the Nether Codex, where cosmic horror meets psychological dread. This isn't just a story, it's a descent into the unknown, a journey that might leave you questioning what's real. Tonight, we'll unravel its secrets, from its cursed origins to the terrors it unleashed on one doomed soul. So, lock your doors, dim the lights, and grip that subscribe button like a lifeline. You're about to step into a world that doesn't let go. Let's dive in, if you dare. The New England coast was a place of secrets, where the Atlantic gnawed at jagged cliffs and fog hung like a living thing, swallowing sound and sight. In the autumn of 2024, a crumbling seaside manor in a forgotten fishing village hosted an estate auction, its halls heavy with the weight of lost lives. The manor, once the pride of a whaling dynasty, now sagged under neglect, its windows clouded with salt and its floors creaking under the footsteps of scavengers and scholars. Among them was Alex Harper, a 32-year-old historian with a penchant for the obscure, their wire-rimmed glasses fogging slightly in the damp air. Alex had built a modest career unearthing forgotten manuscripts, piecing together the lives of those history had overlooked. But nothing in their years of dusty archives prepared them for what they found that day. The auction was a chaotic affair, with bidders jostling over tarnished silver, chipped porcelain, and oil paintings warped by time. Alex lingered at the edges, their attention drifting to a velvet-lined table in a shadowed corner. There, alone and untouched, sat a book. It was ancient, its leather cover an unsettling shade of gray, soft and pliable in a way that felt almost organic. A faint, sour odor clung to it, like damp earth mixed with something metallic, something wrong. No title graced its surface, only a single glyph, a spiraling, asymmetrical symbol that seemed to writhe when Alex tried to focus on it, as if it were dodging their gaze. The book was the Nether Codex, a name whispered in academic circles, tied to Caraway, a 19th century archaeologist whose obsession with the occult had led to his mysterious disappearance. Caraway was a figure of fascination and cautionary tales. Born in 1820, he'd been a prodigy, excavating sites from Mesopotamia to the Yucatan, chasing artifacts that hinted at truths beyond the veil of known history. His journals, fragments of which Alex had read in university archives, spoke of hidden realms and thresholds that connected worlds. But Caraway's brilliance was overshadowed by his descent into madness, or so the story went. In 1863, he vanished, leaving behind only rumors and this manuscript, the Codex, which had surfaced sporadically over the centuries, each appearance marked by tales of misfortune. Alex had heard the stories. A London bookseller driven to suicide after acquiring it, a Boston collector who claimed it whispered to him before his house burned down. They dismissed these as embellishments, the kind of lore that clung to rare artifacts. Yet standing before the Codex, Alex felt a chill that had nothing to do with the manor's drafty halls. The auctioneer, a gaunt man with eyes like chipped flint, offered no provenance, only a curt warning: some things are best left unopened. His voice carried an edge, as if he'd seen the book's shadow himself. The other bidders avoided it, their eyes sliding past as if the Codex repelled them. Alex, though, was hooked. Curiosity, their lifelong companion, surged, mingling with a strange compulsion they couldn't name. They bid fiercely, their voice steady despite the tremor in their hands, and won the book for a sum that drained their savings. As they lifted it from the table, the leather seemed to cling to their fingers, warm and slightly damp, like skin after a fever. The glyph pulsed faintly, or perhaps that was their imagination. Either way, Alex felt the weight of their choice, a decision that already felt like a step into the unknown. Back in their apartment in Providence, a cluttered sanctuary of bookshelves and faded maps, Alex placed the Codex on their desk. The room, lit by a single brass lamp, felt smaller somehow, the air denser. They opened the book, its pages crackling like dry leaves. The paper was brittle, yellowed to the color of old bone, the ink an oily, iridescent sheen that caught the light in unnatural ways. The text was a labyrinth, a chaotic blend of memoir, esoteric philosophy, and fragments of something that felt otherworldly. Carraway's handwriting, spidery and erratic, recounted his travels, his discoveries, his growing obsession with the threshold, a boundary he described as a wound in the fabric of reality. The words were slippery, sentences rearranging themselves when Alex blinked, meanings dissolving like mist. Some pages held sketches, impossible geometries that hurt the eyes, creatures with too many limbs bending in ways that defied logic, landscapes where the horizon twisted into itself. This wasn't a book to be read. It was a puzzle designed to break the mind. Alex's first night with the Codex was restless. They sat in their study, the lamp casting long shadows that seemed to pool unnaturally in the corners. The air grew heavy, pressing against their skin like a physical presence. A faint whisper, like a chorus of voices just out of reach, hummed at the edge of hearing. They chalked it up to exhaustion, the creaks of an old building, the wind rattling the windows. But the Codex felt alive, its presence a hum in their bones. They recalled tales of cursed books, H.P. Lovecraft's Necronomicon, a fictional grimoire said to unravel sanity, or the Book of the Dead from Evil Dead, a tome that unleashed horrors. These were stories, inventions, yet the Codex carried a weight that felt real. It wasn't just its age or rarity. It was the way it seemed to watch them, the glyph on its cover glinting like an eye in the lamplight. The dread it inspired wasn't new to horror. Lovecraft, Clark Ashton Smith, and their ilk had long explored the terror of forbidden knowledge, the idea that some truths were too vast, too alien, for the human mind to bear. The Necronomicon was a warning. To read it was to invite madness. The Codex felt like a cousin to that myth, but its grip was more intimate, more personal. Alex felt it sizing them up, probing their thoughts, as if deciding whether they were a scholar or prey. They thought of real-world parallels, objects that carried an inexplicable unease. Their grandmother's locket, for instance, a heavy silver thing that always felt cold, no matter how long it was worn. Alex had never opened it, never wanted to, yet it sat in a drawer, its presence a quiet hum. The Codex was that feeling magnified 1,000-fold, a relic that didn't just suggest dread but embodied it. As they turned the pages, the whispers grew louder, though still unintelligible, like a language forgotten by time. The room seemed to shift, the shadows stretching against the flicker of the lamp, forming shapes that hinted at something watching. A book fell from a shelf, its thud jarring in the silence. Alex's pulse quickened, but they couldn't look away from the Codex. One passage, written in a trembling hand, described Carraway's discovery of the threshold in a cave on the New England coast. He spoke of beings on the other side, entities with mirror-like skin, their movements defying geometry, their presence a violation of natural law. The words evoked Lovecraft's Yog-Sothoth, the gate and the key, or Nyarlathotep, the crawling chaos, entities so alien they shattered comprehension. Alex's academic mind cataloged these references, but their gut felt something else. A primal fear, the kind that comes from touching something that doesn't belong in this world. They closed the Codex, their hands trembling, and tried to sleep. But the book's presence lingered, a weight in the room. Their dreams were fragmented, filled with images from the pages. A vast plain under a sky of writhing stars, a place from a childhood nightmare they'd buried long ago. They woke to find the Codex open on their desk, though they were certain they'd locked it away. The glyph on its cover seemed sharper now, its lines cutting into the leather like a wound. The whispers hadn't stopped. They were softer, but constant, a drone that followed them into the daylight. Alex's life, once ordered and predictable, was beginning to fray, and the Codex was only just beginning to reveal its power. This was the start of their descent, not into a physical abyss, but into the uncharted depths of their own mind. The Codex wasn't a passive relic. It was active, aware, and it had chosen Alex. Why did it resonate so deeply? Because it tapped into a universal fear. The loss of control, the idea that something external could hijack your will. In our world, we see this in addiction. how a substance or habit can pull you back, no matter how hard you fight. Or in the hypnotic scroll of social media, where hours vanish into a void of content. The Codex was an extreme version, a force that didn't just tempt but possessed, sinking its claws into Alex's soul. Their story was a warning. Some things, once touched, cannot be let go. In the weeks following their acquisition of the Nether Codex, Alex Harper's world began to unravel, thread by fragile thread. Their Providence apartment, once a cozy refuge of bookshelves, maps, and the faint scent of coffee, had become a battleground. The Codex sat on their desk, its leather cover glinting in the dim light of the brass lamp, a silent predator that seemed to hum with intent. Alex, a historian accustomed to wresting meaning from dusty manuscripts, found themselves outmatched, not by the book's complexity, but by its presence. It was no longer an artifact to be studied. It was a force alive and watchful, and it had sunk its claws into their mind. Days bled into nights, marked only by the turning of the Codex's brittle pages. Alex's life outside the book faded. Their research on 19th century New England folklore, once a passion, gathered dust on their laptop. Emails from colleagues went unanswered, their inbox a graveyard of missed deadlines. Friends, like Sarah and Gwyn, a fellow historian who'd shared countless late-night debates over whiskey, noticed the change. "You look like you haven't slept in a month," Sarah texted, her words tinged with worry. Alex meant to reply to reassure her, but their eyes drifted back to the Codex, its glyph pulsing faintly, as if daring them to look away. The book didn't just demand attention. It consumed it, drowning out the world in a tide of whispers and shadows. The Codex's contents were a labyrinth of terror, a chaotic tapestry of Irge Carraway's fevered prose. His words wove memoir with philosophy, recounting his pursuit of the threshold, a sentient boundary he described as a wound in reality, a tear between our world and something vast, unknowable. The ink, an oily sheen that shimmered unnaturally, seemed to writhe under Alex's gaze, sentences dissolving when they tried to hold them in focus. Some pages held sketches, jagged, impossible geometries that made their head ache, creatures with limbs bending in defiance of anatomy, landscapes where the sky folded into itself like a living thing. One sketch stopped Alex cold, a distorted face, eerily familiar, staring from the margins. It was their own, or a version of it. The eyes too wide, the mouth twisted into a smile that wasn't theirs. They slammed the book shut, their heart pounding, but the image lingered, burned into their mind. The supernatural phenomena began subtly, creeping into the edges of Alex's reality. The whispers, once faint and dismissible as the creaks of an old building, grew louder, coalescing into syllables that teased at meaning but never resolved. They came at night, when the apartment was still, a chorus of voices just beyond comprehension, like a radio tuned to a dead frequency. Shadows no longer obeyed the laws of light, stretching and twisting across the walls, forming shapes that hinted at figures watching from the corners. Curtains fluttered in rooms with no open windows, the fabric swaying as if brushed by unseen hands. Objects moved when Alex wasn't looking. A pen rolled off the desk, stopping at an angle that defied gravity. A book fell from a shelf, landing open to a page Alex hadn't marked. The Codex itself was the worst offender. They locked it in a drawer one night, double-checking the latch, only to find it open on their desk by morning. Its pages turned to a passage they hadn't read. This was no mere book. It was a predator, and Alex was its prey. They felt it vibrate under their touch, a faint pulse that synced with their own heartbeat, as if the Codex were alive, its rhythm a mockery of their own. The leather cover grew warmer each day, its texture softer, almost pliant, like skin after a fever. The glyph on its surface seemed to sharpen, its lines cutting deeper into the leather, glinting like an eye in the lamplight. Alex's dreams were no longer their own. They saw the threshold, a pulsating organic veil glowing with sickly hues of green and violet, its surface rippling like liquid flesh. Towering figures stood beyond it, their mirror-like skin reflecting fragments of Alex's face, distorted and wrong. Their movements defied geometry, folding through dimensions that shouldn't exist. Alex woke gasping, the images lingering like afterimages of a nightmare, their sheets damp with sweat. This was cosmic horror in its purest form, the kind H.P. Lovecraft and Clark Ashton Smith had woven into their tales. Knowledge wasn't power, it was a curse. The Codex embodied this dread, a gateway to truths so alien they shattered the human mind. Carraway's notes grew more erratic, describing his discovery of the threshold in a cave on the New England coast. He glimpsed beings on the other side, entities with reflective skin, their presence a violation of natural law, their gaze a weight that crushed the soul. These weren't monsters in the traditional sense, but ideas like Lovecraft's Yog-Sothoth, the Gate and the Key, or Nyarlathotep, the crawling chaos. They were concepts so vast they unraveled sanity, and Alex felt their mind straining under the weight of each page. The Codex knew them, its passages reflecting their deepest fears. One night, they found a page describing a childhood nightmare they'd never shared. A vast, empty plain under a sky of writhing stars, where something immense watched from the darkness. The realization hit like a physical blow. The Codex wasn't just reading them, it was rewriting them, weaving itself into their thoughts, their memories. They tried to pull away, to focus on anything else, but their eyes drifted back to the book, its presence a constant hum in their mind. Their apartment felt smaller, the walls closing in, the air thick with a pressure that made breathing a conscious effort. Mirrors were the worst. Their reflection was subtly off, too pale, eyes too bright, a smile too sharp. They avoided looking too long, but the glass seemed to watch them, its surface rippling faintly when they turned away. Alex's obsession mirrored real-world traps, the kind that strip away agency in subtler ways. Think of addiction, how a substance or behavior can hijack your will, pulling you back no matter how hard you resist. Or the hypnotic pull of social media, where you scroll through feeds long after you meant to stop, hours vanishing into a void. The Codex was an extreme version, a force that didn't just tempt but possessed, sinking its claws into Alex's soul. They thought of Sarah, the book collector from Boston who'd found a strange journal at a flea market. She'd spent sleepless nights decoding its unreadable script, only to be haunted by nightmares of a dark, endless void. Her friends noticed her withdrawal, her hollow eyes, as if part of her was elsewhere. She burned the journal, and the nightmares stopped, but the experience left scars. Alex wondered if they were on the same path, their curiosity a cage they'd built themselves. The Codex's influence grew stronger, its phenomena bolder. One night, as Alex read by candlelight, the lamp had flickered out for no reason. The shadows coalesced into a shape, a silhouette that moved against the wall, its limbs too long, its head featureless. They froze, the candle flame trembling, and the shape dissolved when they blinked. But the whispers didn't stop, now forming words they almost understood. Threshold, the Codex's pages seemed to know their thoughts, revealing passages that answered questions they hadn't voiced. A line about the threshold described it as a mirror of the self, reflecting what you fear to become. Alex's reflection in the window that night wasn't theirs. It was the face from the sketch, its eyes cold, predatory. They covered the windows, but the image lingered, a ghost in their mind. This was the heart of the Codex's power. It didn't just scare, it consumed. Alex's life was no longer their own. Their body showed the strain. Gaunt cheeks, bloodshot eyes, hands that trembled when they held a pen. Sarah visited once, her knock pulling Alex from the Codex's trance. "You're scaring me," she said, her voice soft but firm. "Whatever this book is, it's not worth this." Alex wanted to agree to lock the Codex away, but the words wouldn't come. The book's pulse was their pulse now, its whispers their thoughts. Sarah left, her parting glance heavy with grief, and Alex turned back to the Codex, unable to resist. They were trapped in a paradox. Every page drew them deeper, but stopping felt impossible. The Codex wasn't just a book. It was a virus, rewriting their reality, and Alex was running out of time to escape. Alex Harper was no longer the scholar who'd walked into that seaside auction months ago. their curiosity bright and untainted. The Nether Codex had stripped them bare, leaving a hollowed-out version of themselves, driven by a compulsion that felt both foreign and inescapable. Their Providence apartment, once a sanctuary of books and ideas, was now a prison, its walls closing in with every passing day. The Codex sat on their desk, its leather cover pulsing faintly in the dim light, its glyph a wound that seemed to bleed shadow. The whispers were constant now, a drone that followed Alex into every corner of their life, forming words that clawed at their mind. Threshold, come, the. Their reflection in mirrors, when they dared to look, was no longer theirs, showing a face too pale, eyes too bright, a smile that belonged to something else. Strange symbols had begun to appear on their skin, faint but growing, glowing softly in the dark like embers under ash. The Codex had taken everything, their sleep, their friends, their sense of self, but it had given them a purpose, a singular, burning need to find the cave Irge Carraway described in his fevered prose. The threshold, that sentient boundary he called a wound in reality, was no longer a concept but a destination, a place where answers might lie or oblivion. Alex's dreams were invasions, vivid and oppressive, showing the veil, a pulsating, organic barrier glowing with sickly hues of green and violet. Towering figures watched from beyond, their mirror-like skin reflecting fragments of Alex's face, distorted and wrong. Each dream left them gasping, the images lingering like a poison in their blood. They knew the Codex was driving them toward the cave, but resistance felt futile. The book's pulse was their pulse, its will their own. In late November, with winter's chill creeping into Providence, Alex packed a bag and left their apartment, the Codex tucked into a leather satchel that felt heavier than it should. They drove north along the New England coast, the road winding through desolate fishing villages where the sea and sky seemed to conspire against the living. Fog clung to the asphalt, curling around their car like a living thing, muffling the world in a gray haze. The radio sputtered static, occasionally catching fragments of voices that sounded too much like the Codex's whispers. Alex's hands gripped the wheel, their knuckles white, their eyes bloodshot from sleepless nights. The symbols on their skin itched, a constant reminder of the book's grip, and their reflection in the rearview mirror was a stranger's, gaunt, hollow, with eyes that glinted unnaturally. They stopped in every coastal town, poring over frayed maps in dimly lit libraries and questioning locals in smoky taverns. Most dismissed them as another city eccentric, their stories of a cursed cave met with skeptical laughs or hurried glances away. But the Codex guided them, its pages revealing new passages that described landmarks. A twisted oak split by lightning, a cliff shaped like a screaming face. Alex found these places, each discovery tightening the book's hold, as if it were leading them by a leash. In a village called Black Reef, a place of sagging docks and weathered faces, they met an old fisherman named Amos, his skin like leather, his eyes distant with the weight of years. Over a glass of cheap whiskey in a bar that smelled of fish and despair, he spoke of cursed cliffs north of town. "Things crawl there," he muttered, his voice low, as if afraid of being overheard. "Things that don't belong. My pa saw lights out there once, said they moved wrong, like they were alive." His words grounded the Codex's nightmare, making the supernatural feel like it lurked just beyond the everyday, a shadow cast by the ordinary. Alex found the cave at dusk, a gaping maw in the cliffs, its entrance framed by eroded symbols that matched the Codex's glyph. The air was thick with the scent of salt and something acrid, unnatural, like burnt metal mixed with decay. The sea roared below, its waves crashing with a rhythm that echoed the Codex's pulse. Alex's flashlight flickered as they stepped inside, the beam struggling against the darkness, as if the cave were swallowing light itself. The walls glistened with moisture that felt too warm, too alive, leaving a slick residue on their fingers. The deeper they went, the more reality unraveled. Sounds echoed without source, footsteps reverberating in impossible patterns, the ground pulsing softly underfoot like a heartbeat. The whispers grew louder, a cacophony of voices urging them forward, promising truths that both terrified and enthralled. Then they saw it. The veil, a pulsating organic barrier that filled the cave's deepest chamber. It glowed with sickly hues, green, violet, colors that didn't belong in this world. Its surface rippling like liquid flesh, alive and aware. It wasn't a portal. It was a presence, a sentient thing that seemed to breathe, its light casting Alex's shadow in jagged, impossible shapes. The codex vibrated in their satchel, its pulse syncing with the veil's rhythm, a siren call that drowned out reason. The whispers became a chorus, words forming in their mind. Cross, no, become. Alex's body trembled, their flashlight dropping to the ground, its beam extinguished. The veil beckoned, its surface shimmering with reflections. Not of the cave, but of places and things that shouldn't exist. Skies of writhing stars, creatures with too many limbs, a version of Alex's face, smiling with teeth that weren't human. This was the crucible, the moment where choice and fate collided. The veil wasn't just a doorway. It was a test, a boundary between sanity and the abyss. To touch it was to risk everything: mind, identity, the very fabric of self. Alex felt the codex's weight, its will pressing against their own, urging them forward. Memories flashed, Sarah's worried voice, the warmth of their apartment before the book, the person they'd been before curiosity became a cage. But the veil's pull was stronger, its promise of answers a lure they couldn't resist. Their hand reached out, trembling, and touched the veil. Reality shattered. They were pulled into a world that defied comprehension. The ground was liquid, shifting beneath their feet, a viscous tide that pulsed like a living thing. The sky was a void, pierced by alien constellations that moved, not like stars, but like eyes, watching with indifference. Towering beings surrounded them, their mirror-like skin reflecting fragments of Alex's face, each shard distorted. Eyes too wide, mouths stretched into impossible grins. Their movements were wrong, folding through dimensions that shouldn't exist, their forms flickering between shapes that hurt to look at. Alex's mind splintered, their sense of self dissolving into the vastness of this place. It wasn't fear. It was annihilation, the realization that humanity was nothing, a speck in the face of something so immense, so indifferent. The beings didn't speak, but their presence was a weight, a force that crushed Alex's thoughts, rewriting them in a language they couldn't grasp. Time lost meaning. Seconds or centuries passed, each moment a kaleidoscope of terror and awe. Alex saw glimpses of other worlds, cities of glass that sang, oceans that burned, skies that bled. They saw Caraway, or what was left of him, his form woven into the veil, his eyes empty but alive, forever bound to this place. The Codex's voice was everywhere, its whispers now a roar. You are ours, you are the threshold. Alex felt their identity fraying, their memories slipping like sand through their fingers. They were no longer just Alex Harper. They were part of something larger, something that didn't care for their humanity. The beings watched, their reflective surfaces showing Alex's face transforming, their skin paling, their eyes glinting with an unnatural light, symbols etching themselves deeper into their flesh. Then, with a wrenching pull, they were back in the cave, sprawled on the cold stone floor, the veil's light fading. Their body ached, their clothes torn, their satchel empty. The codex was gone, or perhaps it had never needed to be carried. The symbols on their skin burned, pulsing in time with their heartbeat. They stumbled out of the cave, the sea's roar a distant echo, and drove back to Providence in a daze, the road blurring through tears they didn't remember shedding. The world felt wrong, its edges too sharp, its colors too dull, as if the veil had drained the life from everything. Alex's journey had answered nothing. It had only deepened the Codex's hold, pulling them closer to a fate they couldn't yet name. This was cosmic horror's essence, the terror of the unknowable, the fragility of the self against a universe that doesn't care. Alex's experience echoed real-world stories, like that of Michael, a hiker lost in the Pacific Northwest in 2018. Found weeks later, he ranted about a door in the woods that showed him another place, describing creatures with shifting forms and a sky that pulsed like a heartbeat. Doctors called it delirium, But his words mirrored Alex's visions, impossible landscapes, beings that defied logic. Was it coincidence? Or were there places where reality thinned? Where the veil's shadow touched our world? The question lingered, a splinter in the mind, making Alex's journey not just a story, but a warning. Some truths come at a cost too great to bear.
Alex Harper stumbled back into their Providence apartment, the door slamming shut behind them with a finality that echoed in the silence. The journey to the cave, the encounter with the veil, had left them battered, body bruised, clothes torn, mind fractured like glass under pressure. The Nether Codex was gone, vanished from their satchel somewhere in that otherworldly realm. Yet its presence lingered, a weight in the air, a pulse in their veins. The symbols etched into their skin glowed faintly now, pulsing in time with their heartbeat, their lines sharper, more intricate, like a language written by something not human. The world they'd returned to was no longer the one they'd left. Colors were muted, as if drained of life. The air was thick, pressing against their skin like a living thing. Their apartment, once a haven of books and warmth, was a tomb, its walls closing in with every breath. The memory of the veil haunted them, its pulsating organic surface, glowing with sickly hues of green and violet, rippling like liquid flesh. They could still feel the pull of that other world, its liquid ground shifting beneath their feet, its void sky pierced by alien constellations that moved like eyes, the towering beings with mirror-like skin, reflecting fragments of Alex's face, distorted, wrong, lingered in their mind, their presence a weight that crushed their sense of self. They'd seen Irge Caraway there, or what was left of him, his form woven into the veil, his eyes empty yet alive, forever bound to its will. The Codex's voice had roared in that place. You are ours. You are the threshold. Alex had escaped or been released, but the cost was clear. They were no longer just themselves. Something else was inside them, watching, waiting. Their apartment bore the marks of the Codex's influence. The brass lamp flickered without cause, casting shadows that moved against the light, forming shapes that hinted at figures just out of sight. Bookshelves sagged, their contents rearranged in patterns Alex didn't recognize. Titles in languages they couldn't read, pages marked with symbols that matched those on their skin. The air carried a faint, sour odor, the same as the Codex's leather, like decay mixed with something metallic. Objects disobeyed logic. A mug slid across the counter when they turned away, stopping at the edge as if placed by an unseen hand. A clock ticked backward, its hands jerking in defiance of time. The whispers were relentless, no longer confined to the night. They formed words now, soft but insistent. See, become, inevitable. Alex's head throbbed, their thoughts tangled, as if the Codex were rewriting their mind from within. Mirrors were the worst. Alex avoided them, covering every reflective surface with sheets and towels. But the glass seemed to call to them, its presence a hum in their bones. One night, driven by a compulsion they couldn't resist, they uncovered the bathroom mirror. The face staring back wasn't theirs. It was a creature wearing their skin, its eyes cold and predatory, its smile a mockery of humanity. Its skin was too pale, almost translucent, revealing faint veins that pulsed with an unnatural light. The symbols on their body, glowed brighter, weaving across their chest like a map of some alien terrain. Alex's hand trembled, reaching for the glass, and the creature mirrored them, its movements too smooth, too precise. They smashed the mirror, shards scattering across the floor, but each fragment still reflected that thing, its gaze unyielding, its voice a low, mocking whisper that echoed in their skull. This was the Codex's true power. It didn't just terrify, it transformed. Alex tried to fight, to reclaim the person they'd been before the book. They locked the apartment door, as if that could keep the Codex's influence at bay. They avoided their desk, where the book had once sat, its absence a wound in the room. They even called Sarah Gwyn, their old friend, leaving a voicemail that sounded more like a plea. I'm in trouble, Sarah. I don't know what's happening to me. But Sarah didn't answer. She'd stopped trying after weeks of Alex's silence, her last message a warning. Whatever that book is, it's killing you. Alone, Alex turned to the only thing left. The Codex's final pages, which had appeared on their desk one night, unbound, as if the book had never left. They read, hoping for salvation, but found only Caraway's descent. His words were a confession, scrawled in a trembling hand. He'd crossed the threshold, seen the beings beyond, and become something else, part of the veil, a fragment of its will. The threshold is not a place, he wrote, but a state of being. To cross it is to surrender the self, to become its vessel. The final passage burned into Alex's mind. The threshold is inescapable. They saw their fate in those words, mirrored in the symbols on their skin, in the creature in the glass. The Codex wasn't gone. It was inside them, its leather their flesh, its ink their blood. The apartment seemed to pulse with its presence, the walls rippling faintly, the shadows coalescing into shapes that whispered their name. This was cosmic horror at its bleakest, the kind H.P. Lovecraft crafted in tales of indifferent gods and fragile minds. Unlike traditional horror, where a monster might be slain or a curse broken, cosmic horror offered no victory. The monster was reality itself, vast and uncaring, and Alex was its prey. Their humanity was eroding, their identity dissolving into the Codex's design. They thought of real-world echoes, like Sarah's story, the book collector who'd found a journal in a flea market, its unreadable script driving her to nightmares of a dark void. She'd burned it, escaping its grip, but Alex had no such option. Or Michael, the hiker lost in the Pacific Northwest, ranting about a door in the woods and creatures that weren't human. His descriptions, shifting shapes, a sky that moved, matched Alex's visions, suggesting the threshold shadow touched more than one life. These stories, whether delusion or truth, made Alex's fate feel inevitable, a pattern woven into the fabric of existence. One night, driven by desperation, Alex uncovered another mirror, a small hand mirror they'd forgotten in a drawer. The creature was stronger now, its face barely recognizable as theirs. Its eyes were voids, its smile a slash of too many teeth. It spoke, its voice a blend of Alex's and something older, colder. "You are the threshold." Alex dropped the mirror, but the shards didn't break the reflection. They multiplied it, each piece showing the creature, its gaze a promise of what was to come. They tried to scream, but the sound was swallowed by the whispers, now a roar that filled the apartment. The symbols on their skin burned, spreading across their arms, their chest, their face, a map of their transformation. The Codex's final words echoed, "The threshold is inescapable." Alex sank to the floor, the apartment pulsing around them, its walls rippling like the veil. They saw Caraway's fate in their own, bound to the threshold, forever a part of its will. The creature in the mirror wasn't a stranger. It was them, or what they were becoming. Their memories frayed, childhood summers, Sarah's laugh, the smell of coffee in their old life, replaced by visions of liquid ground, void skies, and beings that watched without care. They were no longer Alex Harper. They were a vessel, a fragment of something vast, something that didn't need their name. The Codex had won, rewriting their reality, their self, until nothing human remained. This was the tragedy of the Codex. It didn't destroy with fire or blood, but with erasure, stripping away what made Alex human. Their story was a warning, not just of cursed books or alien realms, but of the fragility of the self, the ease with which obsession could unravel identity. The threshold wasn't just a place. It was a state of being, a surrender to forces too vast to fight. Alex's fate lingered, a shadow in the apartment, a whisper in the mirrors, a reminder that some doors, once opened, could never be closed. The story of Alex Harper and the Nether Codex ends not with a scream, but with a silence, a void where a person once stood, erased by a force too vast to comprehend. Their Providence apartment, now empty, holds only echoes. The faint hum of whispers, the glint of shattered mirrors, the pulse of symbols that no longer need a body to carry them. Alex's journey, from curious scholar to vessel of the threshold, is a descent into cosmic horror, a genre that thrives on the terror of the unknowable. But beneath its surface of cursed books, alien realms, and predatory shadows lies a deeper truth, one that resonates beyond the page or screen. This tale, born in the shadowed corners of Reddit's r/nosleep, is more than a chilling narrative. It's a mirror held up to our own lives, reflecting the dangers of obsession, the cost of forbidden knowledge, and the fragility of the boundaries we take for granted. Let's step back and unpack what the Nether Codex teaches us. At its core, it's a story of a book so dangerous that reading it unravels reality. A tome that whispers in the dark, moves shadows when they shouldn't, and pulls its reader into a world they were never meant to see. Alex's encounter with the Codex began innocently enough, driven by the same curiosity that fuels scholars, explorers, and dreamers. But the book was no passive artifact. It was a predator, choosing Alex as its vessel, sinking its claws into their mind until their life, their identity, was no longer their own. The threshold, that sentient wound in reality, was the Codex's heart, a boundary not just between worlds but between self and oblivion. Alex's crossing of the veil, their glimpse of towering beings with mirror-like skin, and their transformation into something not human are the stuff of nightmares, rooted in the cosmic horror of H.P. Lovecraft and Clark Ashton Smith. Yet the true horror isn't the creatures or the alien landscapes. It's the slow erosion of Alex's humanity, the realization that they could not win, could not escape. This is cosmic horror's bleakest truth. There is no victory against the vast, indifferent universe. Unlike traditional horror, where a hero might slay the monster or break the curse, cosmic horror offers no such resolution. The monster is existence itself, a reality so immense, so uncaring, that humanity is but a speck, easily erased. Alex's fate, becoming part of the threshold, a fragment of its will, mirrors the stories of Lovecraft's doomed protagonists, who glimpse forbidden truths only to be consumed by them. The Necronomicon, Lovecraft's fictional grimoire, warned of madness. The Codex delivers it, rewriting Alex's reality until nothing remains but the echo of its voice. Earge Carraway, the archaeologist who first found the threshold, suffered the same fate, his words a haunting prophecy. The threshold is inescapable. Alex's story is a tragedy, not because they died, but because they ceased to be themselves. Their identity dissolved into something that no longer needed their name. But why does this story resonate so deeply? Because it taps into fears that are universal, fears that live in the quiet corners of our own lives. The Codex's grip on Alex is a metaphor for obsession, the kind that consumes us when we chase something, be it knowledge, success, or love, without restraint. Think of how a hobby can become an addiction, stealing hours, then days, then years. Or how a relationship can demand so much that you lose pieces of yourself, your identity reshaped to fit another's mold. The Codex is an extreme version, a force that doesn't just tempt but possesses, but its pull echoes the real-world traps we all face. Social media, for instance, with its endless scroll, can hijack our attention, hours vanishing into a void of likes and posts. Addiction, whether to substances or behaviors, can rewrite our priorities, our will, until we're strangers to ourselves. Alex's descent is a warning. Curiosity is a gift, but it needs balance, a tether to the self to keep it from becoming a cage. The Codex also speaks to the danger of forbidden knowledge, the idea that some truths are too heavy for the human mind. In Lovecraft's tales, characters like Herbert West or the narrator of The Call of Cthulhu pay dearly for their glimpses of the cosmic. The Codex embodies this dread, its pages a gateway to truths that shatter sanity. Alex's transformation, symbols on their skin, a creature in the mirror, wasn't just physical. It was existential, a loss of the self to something vast and alien. This fear isn't confined to fiction. In our world, we see it in the pursuit of knowledge without ethics. Think of scientists who push boundaries without considering consequences, or individuals who delve into mysteries that leave them haunted. The story of Sarah, the Boston book collector, is a real-world parallel. Her obsession with a strange journal led to nightmares of a dark void, her mind amplifying fear into something all-consuming. She escaped by burning the book, but Alex had no such reprieve. their fate sealed by the Codex's relentless pull. Then there's the fragility of reality, the idea that our world is held together by threads thinner than we imagine. The threshold, with its pulsating veil and impossible beings, suggests that reality is not as solid as we believe, that there are places where it frays, where we glimpse what lies beyond. Alex's apartment, warped by the Codex's influence. Moving shadows, backward clocks, mirrors that lied, became a microcosm of this dread. Real-world stories echo this unease. Michael, the hiker lost in the Pacific Northwest in 2018, spoke of a door in the woods and creatures that weren't human. His descriptions of shifting shapes and a pulsing sky eerily similar to Alex's visions. Was he delirious, or did he brush against the same shadow? These accounts, whether truth or madness, make us wonder. Are there places where the veil is thin, where we see what we shouldn't? The Codex's story lingers because it feels plausible, a splinter in the mind that questions the stability of our world. So what can we take from Alex's fate? First, it's a call to respect boundaries, not just physical ones, like a cursed cave on a stormy coast, but mental and emotional ones. Curiosity drives us, but it must be tempered with self-awareness, a recognition of when it's consuming us. Have you ever been so fixated on something, a goal, a mystery, a person, that you lost sight of yourself? That's the Codex's warning. Obsession can erode identity, leaving you a stranger in your own life. Second, it's a reminder to question the pursuit of knowledge. Some truths are worth seeking, but others come at a cost too great to bear. The Codex didn't offer power or salvation. It offered annihilation, a truth that destroyed rather than enlightened. In our lives, this might mean stepping back from a fixation that feels wrong, that carries a weight you can't explain. Finally, the Codex urges us to stay grounded, to hold tight to the things that anchor us. Friends, memories, the small joys of everyday life. Alex lost these, their connection to Sarah and their old self severed by the Codex's grip. Think of your own anchors. The laugh of a loved one, the smell of morning coffee, the quiet of a familiar place. These are the threads that keep us whole, that pull us back when we stray too far. The Codex's horror isn't just in its monsters or its alien realms. It's in the loss of these threads, the slow unraveling of what makes us human. So stay curious, but stay tethered. Seek truth, but know your limits. Some mysteries are worth unraveling. Others might unravel you. Imagine standing in Alex's apartment now, the air heavy with whispers, the mirrors covered but still watching. Their story is done, but its echo remains, a challenge to us all. Have you ever encountered something that felt wrong, like it didn't belong in our world? An object that chilled you, a place that seemed to hum with a presence you couldn't name? These moments, fleeting or profound, connect us to Alex's journey, reminding us that the line between our reality and the unknown is thinner than we think. The Codex may be fiction, but its lessons are real, etched in the choices we make, the boundaries we respect, the selves we fight to preserve. So, carry this story with you. Share it with a friend. Let it spark a conversation about the mysteries that haunt us. Reflect on your own life. What's your Codex, the thing that pulls you too close to the edge? And the next time you find an old book at an auction, its cover soft and strange, its pages whispering secrets, pause. Ask yourself if it's worth the cost. Because some doors, once opened, can never be closed. Stay safe, keep the lights on, and hold tight to who you are. The threshold is out there, waiting, and it's always watching.
And there it ends, or does it? Alex Harper is gone, swallowed by the Nether Codex, their humanity erased by a truth too vast, too cruel to bear. But the threshold is still out there, waiting in the shadows, in the places where reality frays. This story isn't just a warning, it's a whisper in your ear, asking, what's your Codex? That thing you can't let go, that mystery that pulls you closer to the edge? If this tale left you shivering, hit that like button and share it with someone who loves a good scare. Drop a comment below. Have you ever felt something wrong? Something that didn't belong in our world? A book? A place? A moment that made your skin crawl? Subscribe and ring that bell for more dives into the dark. where the unexplained waits to claim you. But be careful what you seek. Some truths don't let you walk away. Keep the lights on and watch the mirrors. If you enjoyed tonight's chilling tale, don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps summon more spooky stories for you. Subscribe and turn on the bell so you never miss a night at the edge of fear. And tell me in the comments. Until next time, sleep tight, if you can.